Welcome back, my friends. My name is Tony, and this is another episode of special little mini series. Let's read the longing. And it looks like our shade really looking forward to have a walk and actually gonna play a little bit after this episode. I'm not sure when and how it will be regarding the uploading schedule, but we will see. We will see. Let's pick up the charcoal. And as usual, to start the cozy fire. Yep. And today we will continue reading Aesop's Fables. Yeah. Neo is excited. I am excited. And I hope you're at least somewhat excited as both of us. Alright, let's turn this idle reading off and let's continue. The Fisherman and the Sprat. A fisherman cast his net into the sea, and when he drew it up again, it contained nothing but a single sprat that begged to be put back into the water. "I am only a little fish now," it said, "but I shall grow big one day, and then if you come and catch me again, I shall be of some use to you." But the fisherman replied, "Oh no, I shall keep you now, I've got you. If I put you back, should I ever see you again? Not likely." As sad as it sounds, it's actually quite wise. It's better to have something in your hands, than something bigger in your imagination. The Boasting Traveler. A man once went abroad on his travels, and when he came home, he had wonderful tales to tell of the things he had done in foreign countries. Among other things, he said he had taken part in a jumping match at Rhodes and had done a wonderful jump which no one could beat. "Just go to Rhodes and ask them," he said. "Everyone will tell you it's true." But one of those who were listening said, "If you can jump as well as all that, we needn't go to Rhodes to prove it. Let's just imagine this is Rhodes for a minute, and now jump. Deeds, not words." Wow, frankly, these fables can teach you more than some lessons in school, to be all honest. And I do hope children nowadays read these fables in schools as well. Well, or at least they read them in their free time. The Crab and his Mother. An old crab said to her son, "Why do you walk sideways like that, my son? You ought to walk straight." The young crab replied, "Show me how, dear mother, and I will follow your example." The old crab tried, but tried in vain, and then saw how foolish she had been to find fault with her child. Example is better than precept. Oh yes, oh yes. The Ass and his Shadow. A certain man hired an ass for a journey in summertime and started out with the owner following behind to drive the beast. By and by, in the heat of the day, they stopped to rest, and the traveler wanted to lie down in the ass shadow. But the owner, who himself wished to be out of the sun, wouldn't let him do that, for he said he had hired the ass only and not his shadow. The other maintained that his bargain secured him complete control of the ass for the time being. From words they came to blows, and while they were belaboring each other, the ass took his heels and was soon out of sight. The Farmer and his Sons. A farmer, being at death's door and desiring to impart to his sons a secret of much moment, called them round him and said, "My sons, I am shortly about to die. I would have you know therefore that in my vineyard there lies a hidden treasure. Dig, and you will find it." As soon as the father was dead, the sons took spade and fork and turned up the soil of the vineyard over and over again in the search for the treasure which they supposed to lie buried there. They found none, however, but the vines, after so thorough a digging, produced a crop such as had never before been seen. Yeah, that's a smart one. The Dog and the Cook. A rich man once invited a number of his friends and acquaintances to a banquet. His dog thought it would be a good opportunity to invite another dog and friend of his, so he went to him and said, "My master is giving a feast. There will be fine spread, so come and dine with me tonight." The dog, thus invited, came, and when he saw the preparations being made in the kitchen, he said to himself, "My word, I'm in luck. I'll take care to eat enough tonight to last me 2 or 3 days." At the same time, he wagged his tail briskly by way of showing his friend how delighted he was to have been asked. But just then the cook caught sight of him, and in his annoyance at seeing a strange dog in the kitchen, caught him up by the hind legs and threw him out of the window. He had a nasty fall and leaped away as quickly as he could, howling dismally. Presently some other dogs met him and said, "Well, what sort of a dinner did you get?" To which he replied, "I had a splendid time. The wine was so good and I drank so much of it that I really don't remember how I got out of the house." Be shy of favors bestowed at the expense of others. Well, I don't really get in this one, but well, I got it, but at the same time I didn't, I guess. The monkey as king. At a gathering of all the animals, the monkey danced and delighted them so much that they made him their king. The fox, however, was very much disgusted at the promotion of the monkey, so having one day found a trap with a piece of meat in it, he took the monkey there and said to him, Here is a dainty morsel I have found, sire. I did not take it myself, because I thought it out to be reserved for you, our king. Will you be pleased to accept it?" The monkey made at once for the meat and got caught in the trap. Then he bitterly reproached the fox for leading him into danger. But the fox only laughed and said, "Oh, monkey, you call yourself king of the beasts and haven't more sense than to be taken in like that." Yeah. The thieves and the cock. Some thieves broke into a house and found nothing worth taking except a cock, which they seized and carried off with them. When they were preparing their supper, one of them caught up the cock and was about to wring his neck when he cried out for mercy and said, "Pray do not kill me, you will find me a most useful bird, for I rouse honest men to their work in the morning by my crowing." But the thief replied with some heat, "Yes, I know you do, making it still harder for us to get a livelihood. Into the pot you go." Oh, poor cock. Rooster. The farmer and fortune. A farmer was ploughing one day on his farm when he turned up a pot of golden coins with his plough. He was overjoyed at his discovery, and from that time forth made an offering daily at the shrine of the goddess of the earth. Fortune was displeased at this and came to him and said, "My man, why do you give earth the credit for the gift which I bestowed upon you? You never thought of thanking me for your good luck. But should you be unlucky enough to lose what you have gained, I know very well that I, Fortune, should then come in for all the blame." Show gratitude where gratitude is due. Yeah, I like this one. Jupiter and the monkey. Lots of tales about monkeys. Jupiter issued a proclamation to all the beasts and offered a prize to the one who, in his judgment, produced the most beautiful offspring. Among the rest came the monkey, carrying a baby monkey in her arms, a hairless, flat-nosed little fright. When they saw it, the gods all burst into peal and peal of laughter, but the monkey hugged her little one to her and said, "Jupiter may give the prize to whomsoever he likes, but I should always think my baby the most beautiful of them all." Oh, I actually like little monkeys, especially if you have seen the baby gorillas. They're so adorable. And little chimpanzees, they're just the best. They're wonderful. They're so cute. Father and sons. A certain man had several sons who were always quarreling with one another, and try as he might, he could not get them to live together in harmony, so he determined to convince them of the folly by the following means. Bidding them fetch a bundle of sticks, he invited each in turn to break it across his knee. All tried and all failed, and then he undid the bundle and handed them the sticks one by one, when they had no difficulty at all in breaking them. "There, my boy," said he, United you will be more than a match for your enemies, but if you quarrel and separate, your weakness will put you at the mercy of those who attack you. Union is strength. It's a good one. The lamp. A lamp, well filled with oil, burned with a clear and steady light, and began to swell with pride and boast that it shone more brightly than the sun himself. Just then a powerful wind came and blew it out. Someone struck a match and lit it again and said, "You just keep a light, and never mind the sun. Why, even the stars never need to be relit as you had to be just now." The owl and the birds. The owl is a very wise bird, and once, long ago, when the first oak sprouted in the forest, she called all the other birds together and said to them, "You see this tiny tree? If you take my advice, you will destroy it now when it is small, for when it grows big, the mistletoe will appear upon it, from which birdlime will be prepared for your destruction." Again, when the first flax was sown, she said to them, "Go and eat out that seed, for it is the seed of the flax, out of which man will one day make nets to catch you." Once more, when she saw the first archer, she warned the birds that he was a deadly enemy who would wing his arrows with their own feathers and shoot them. But they took no notice of what she said. In fact, they thought she was rather mad and laughed at her. When, however, everything turned out as she had foretold, they changed their minds and conceived a great respect for her wisdom. Hence, whenever she appears, the birds attend upon her in the hope of hearing something that may be for their good. She, however, gives them advice no longer, but sits moping and pondering on the folly of her kind. That's an interesting one. A good prospect on owls. The ass in the lion's skin. An ass found a lion's skin and dressed himself up in it. Then he went about frightening everyone he met, for they all took him to be a lion, men and beasts alike, and took to their heels when they saw him coming. Elated by the success of his trick, he loudly brayed in triumph. The fox heard him and recognized him at once for the ass he was, and said to him, "Oh ho, my friend, it's you, is it? I too should have been afraid if I hadn't heard your voice." Yeah. Stay quiet and be prepared for everything. The she-gods and they birds. Jupiter granted beards to the she-gods at their own request, much to the disgust of the he-gods, who considered this to be an unwarrantable invasion of their rights and dignities. So they sent a deputation to him to protest against his action. He, however, advised them not to raise any objections. "What's in a tuft of hair?" said he. "Let them have it if they want it. They can never be a match for you in strength." Alright. The old lion. A lion, enfeebled by age and no longer able to procure food for himself by force, determined to do so by cunning. Betaking himself to a cave, he lay down inside and feigned to be sick. And whenever any of the other animals entered to inquire after his health, he sprang upon them and devoured them. Many lost their lives in this way, till one day a fox called at the cave, and having a suspicion of the truth, addressed the lion from outside instead of going in, and asked him how he did. He replied that he was in a very bad way. "But," said he, "why do you stand outside? Pray come in." "I should have done so," answered the fox, "if I hadn't noticed that all the footprints point towards the cave and none the other way." Yeah, I love when authors make foxes smart and cunning. The boy bathing. A boy was bathing in a river and got out of his depths and was in great danger of being drowned. A man who was passing along a road heard his cries for help and went to the riverside and began to scold him for being so careless as to get into deep water, but made no attempt to help him. "Oh, sir," cried the boy, "please help me first and scold me afterwards." Give assistance, not advice, in a crisis. Yes, that's actually quite a good advice, you know. Jeez. The quack frog. Once upon a time a frog came forth from his home in the marshes and proclaimed to all the world that he was a learned physician, skilled in drugs and able to cure all diseases. Among the crowd was a fox who called out, "You're a doctor! Why? How can you set up to heal others when you cannot even cure your own lame legs and blotched and wrinkled skin?" Physician, heal thyself. Ah, that's hilarious. The swollen fox. A hungry fox found in a hollow tree a quantity of bread and meat which some shepherds had placed there against their return. Delighted with his find, he slipped in through the narrow aperture and greedily devoured it all. But when he tried to get out again, he found himself so swollen after his big meal that he could not squeeze through the hole, and fell to whining and groaning over his misfortune. Another fox, happening to pass that way, came and asked him what the matter was, and on learning the state of the case said, "Well, my friend, I see nothing for it but for you to stay where you are till you shrink to your former size. You will get out then easily enough." I thought it was a trap for a fox, actually, but yeah. The mouse, the frog, and the hawk. A mouse and a frog struck up a friendship. They were not well mated, for the mouse lived entirely on land while the frog was equally at home on land or in the water. In order that they might never be separated, the frog tied himself and the mouse together by the leg with a piece of thread. As long as they kept on dry land, all went fairly well, but coming to the edge of a pool, the frog jumped in, taking the mouse with him, and began swimming about and croaking with pleasure. The unhappy mouse, however, was soon drowned and floated about on the surface in the wake of the frog. There he was spied by a hawk, who pounced down on him and seized him in his talons. The frog was unable to loose the knot which bound him to the mouse, and thus was carried off along with him and eaten by the hawk. Wow, this is a terrible death, and actually a great lesson to be learned late. The Boy and the Nettles. A boy was gathering berries from a hedge when his hand was stung by a nettle. Smarting with the pain, he ran to tell his mother and said to her between his sobs, "I only touched it ever so lightly, mother." "That's just why you got stung, my son," she said. "If you had grasped it firmly, it wouldn't have hurt you in the least." The Peasant and the Apple Tree. A peasant had an apple tree growing in his garden which bore no fruit, but merely served to provide a shelter from the heat for the sparrows and grasshoppers which sat and chirped in its branches. Disappointed at its barrenness, he determined to cut it down and went and fetched his axe for the purpose. But when the sparrows and the grasshoppers saw what he was about to do, they begged him to spare it and said to him, "If you destroy the tree, we shall have to seek shelter elsewhere, and you will no longer have our merry chirping to enliven your work in the garden." He, however, refused to listen to them and set to work with a will to cut through the trunk. A few strokes showed that it was hollow inside and contained a swarm of bees and a large store of honey. Delighted with his find, he threw down his axe, saying, "The old tree is worth keeping after all. Utility is most men's test of worth." The Jackdaw and the Pigeons. A jackdaw watching some pigeons in a farmyard was filled with envy when he saw how well they were fed, and determined to disguise himself as one of them in order to secure a share of the good things they enjoyed. So he painted himself white from head to foot and joined the flock. And so as long he was silent, they never suspected that he was not a pigeon like themselves. But one day he was unwise enough to start chattering when they at once saw through his disguise and pecked him so unmercifully that he was glad to escape and join his own kind again. But the other jackdaws did not recognize him in his white dress and would not let him feed with them, but drove him away, and so he became a homeless wanderer for his pains. That's a good one, actually. Jupiter and the Tortoise. Jupiter was about to marry a wife and determined to celebrate the event by inviting all the animals to a banquet. They all came except the tortoise, who did not put in an appearance, much to Jupiter's surprise. So when he next saw the tortoise, he asked him why he had not been at the banquet. "I don't care for going out," said the tortoise. "There is no place like home." Jupiter was so much annoyed by this reply that he decreed that from that time forth the tortoise should carry his house upon his back and never be able to get away from home, even if he wished to. Oh, so that's how tortoise and turtles got their shell on their backs. That's cool. That's cool. I really want to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for now. The dog in the manger. A dog was lying in a manger on the hay which had been put there for the cattle, and when they came and tried to eat, he growled and snapped at them and wouldn't let them get at their food. "What a selfish beast," said one of them to his companions. "He can't eat himself, and yet he won't let those eat who can." This is actually quite human behavior. The two bags. Every man carries two bags about with him, one in front and one behind, and both are packed full of faults. The bag in front contains his neighbor's faults, the one behind his own. Hence it is that men do not see their own faults, but never fail to see those of others. Oh, that's a good one. I like it. The oxen and the axle trees. A pair of oxen were drawing a heavily loaded wagon along the highway, and as they tugged and strained at the yoke, the axle trees creaked and groaned terribly. This was too much for the oxen, who turned round indignantly and said, "Hello, you there! Why do you make such a noise when we do all the work?" They complain most who suffer least. The boy and the filberts. A boy put his hand into a jar of filberts and grasped as many as his fist could possibly hold, but when he tried to pull it out again, he found he couldn't do so, for the neck of the jar was too small to allow of the passage of so large a handful. Unwilling to lose his nuts, but unable to withdraw his hand, he burst into tears. A bystander who saw where the trouble lay said to him, "Come, my boy, don't be so greedy. Be content with half the amount, and you will be able to get your hand out without difficulty. Do not attempt too much at once." I like this one. The frogs asking for a king. Time was when the frogs were discontented because they had no one to rule over them, so they sent a deputation to Jupiter to ask him to give them a king. Jupiter, despising the folly of their request, cast a log into the pool where they lived and said that should be their king. The frogs were terrified at first by the splash and scuttled away into the deepest part of the pool. But by and by, when they saw that the log remained motionless, one by one they ventured to the surface again, and before long, growing bolder, they began to feel such contempt for it that they even took to sitting upon it. Thinking that a king of that sort was an insult to their dignity, they sent to Jupiter a second time and begged him to take away the sluggish king he had given them, and to give them another and a better one. Jupiter, annoyed at being pestered in this way, sent a stork to rule over them, who no sooner arrived among them than he began to catch and eat the frogs as fast as he could. Oh, poor frogs. They just wanted a king. The olive tree and the fig tree. Should be a good one. An olive tree taunted a fig tree with the loss of her leaves at a certain season of the year. "You," she said, "lose your leaves every autumn and are bare till the spring, whereas I, as you see, remain green and flourishing all the year round." Soon afterwards there came a heavy fall of snow which settled on the leaves of the olive, so that she bent and broke under the weight. But the flakes fell harmlessly through the bare branches of the fig, which survived to bear many another crop. Quite wise story. The Lion and the Boar. One hot and thirsty day in the height of summer, a lion and a boar came down to a little spring at the same moment to drink. In a trice they were quarreling as to who should drink first. The quarrel soon became a fight, and they attacked one another with the utmost fury. Presently, stopping for a moment to take breath, they saw some vultures seated on a rock above, evidently waiting for one of them to be killed, when they would fly down and feed upon the carcass. The sight sobered them at once, and they made up their quarrel, saying, "We had much better be friends than fight and be eaten by vultures." Oh, that's a good one. The walnut tree. A walnut tree which grew by the roadside bore every year a plentiful crop of nuts. Everyone who passed by pelted its branches with sticks and stones in order to bring down the fruit, and the tree suffered severely. "It is hard," it cried, "that the very persons who enjoy my fruit should thus reward me with insults and blows." Oh. The Man and the Lion. A man and the lion were companions on a journey, and in the course of conversations they began to boast about their prowess, and each claimed to be superior to the other in strength and courage. They were still arguing with some heat when they came to a crossroad where there was a statue of a man standing a lion. "There," said the man triumphantly. "Look at that! Doesn't that prove to you that we are stronger than you? Not so fast, my friend, said the lion. That is only your view of the case. If we lions could make statues, you may be sure that in most of them you would see the man underneath. There are two sides to every question. Yeah, perspective is everything. The tortoise and the eagle. A tortoise, disconnected with his lowly life and envious of the birds he saw disporting themselves in the air, begged an eagle to teach him to fly. The eagle protested that it was idle for him to try, as nature had not provided him with wings. But the tortoise pressed him with entreaties and promises of treasure, insisting that it could only be a question of learning the craft of the air. So at length the eagle consented to do the best he could for him, and picked him up in his talons. Soaring with him to a great height in the sky, he then let him go, and the wretched tortoise fell headlong and was dashed to pieces on a rock. Wow. The kid on the housetop. A kid climbed up on the roof of an outhouse, attracted by the grass and other things that grew in the thatch. And as he stood there browsing away, he caught sight of a wolf passing below and jeered at him because he couldn't reach him. The wolf only looked up and said, "I hear you, my young friend, but it is not you who mock me, but the roof on which you are standing." The fox without a tail. A fox once fell into a trap and after a struggle managed to get free, but with the loss of his brush. He was then so much ashamed of his appearance that he thought life was not worth living unless he could persuade the other foxes to part with their tails also, and thus divert attention from his own loss. So he called a meeting of all the foxes and advised them to cut off their tails. "They're ugly things anyhow," he said, "and besides, they're heavy and it's tiresome to be always carrying them about with you." But one of the other foxes said, "My friend, if you hadn't lost your own tail, you wouldn't be so keen on getting us to cut off ours." Foxes. The vain jackdaw. Jupiter announced that he intended to appoint a king over the birds and named a day on which they were to appear before his throne, when he would select the most beautiful of them all to be their ruler. Wishing to look their best on the occasion, they repaired to the banks of a stream, where they busied themselves in washing and preening their feathers. The jackdaw was there alone with the rest, and realized that with his ugly plumage he would have no chance of being chosen as he was. So he waited till they were all gone, and then picked up the most gaudy of the feathers they had dropped and fastened them about his own body, with the result that he looked gayer than any of them. When the appointed day came, the birds assembled before Jupiter's throne, and after passing them in review, he was about to make the jackdaw king, when all the rest set upon the king-elect, stripped him of his borrowed plums, and exposed him for the jackdaw that he was. Looks like some part is missing. The traveler and his dog. A traveler was about to start on a journey and said to his dog, who was stretching himself by the door, "Come, what are you whining for? Hurry up and get ready, I mean you to go with me." But the dog merely wagged his tail and said quietly, "I am ready, master. It's you I am waiting for." I like this one. Dogs are so good, so lovely. The shipwrecked man and the sea. A shipwrecked man cast up on the beach fell asleep after his struggle with the waves. When he woke up, he bitterly reproached the sea for its treachery in enticing men with its smooth and smiling surface, and then, when they were well embarked, turning in fury upon them and sending both ship and sailors to destruction. The sea arose in the form of a woman and replied, "Lay not the blame on me, O sailor, but on the winds. By nature I am as calm and safe as the land itself, but the winds fall upon me with the gusts and gales, and lash me into a fury that is not natural to me." I wonder if by wind they meant a man, and by sea they meant a woman. The wild boar and the fox. A wild boar was engaged in whetting his tusks upon the trunk of a tree in the forest when a fox came by, and seeing what he was at, said to him, "Why are you doing that, pray? The huntsmen are not out today, and there are no other dangers at hand that I can see." "True, my friend," replied the boar, "but the instant my life is in danger, I shall need to use my tusks. There will be no time to sharpen them then." Mercury and the Sculptor. Mercury was very anxious to know in what estimation he was held by mankind, so he disguised himself as a man and walked into a sculptor's studio, where there were a number of statues finished and ready for sale. Seeing a statue of Jupiter among the rest, he inquired the price of it. "A crown," said the sculptor. "Is that all?" said he, laughing, and pointing to one of Juno. "How much is that one?" "That," was the reply, "is half a crown." "And how much might you be wanting for that one over here?" "Now," he continued, pointing to a statue of himself. "That one," said the sculptor. "Oh, I will throw him in for nothing if you will buy the other two." Alright, let's read another one. The Fawn and his mother. A hen said to her fawn, who was now well grown and strong, "My son, nature has given you a powerful body and a stout pair of horns, and I can't think why you are such a coward as to run away from the hounds." Just then they both heard the sound of a pack in full cry, but at a considerable distance. "You stay where you are," said the hind, "never mind me," and with that she ran off as fast as her legs could carry her. Okay, another one. I think I will be ending my episode here. The Fox and the Lion. A fox who had never seen a lion one day met one and was so terrified at the sight of him that he was ready to die with fear. After a time he met him again and was still rather frightened, but not nearly so much as he had been when he met him first. But when he saw him for the third time, he was so far from being afraid that he went up to him and began to talk to him as if he had known him all his life. That's an interesting one, actually. You know, we always fear our fears, and 95% of them will never happen. Alright, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this reading. I will definitely be finishing this Aesop's Fables in my next episode, and for now, however, it is time to end it. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed your time. Please stay awesome, be healthy, and always yourself. I'll see you soon. Much love.